Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Power Tips, and we have essentially concluded our run of the Dynamics Wave release features. And so now we're going to pivot a little bit and start to hone in a little bit on some of the Power Platform. And we decided after rolling dice and flipping cards and doing all the number straw picking, we decided on Power Automate to start things off. So let's dive in.
Yeah, so yours, first of all, yeah. Sorry. First of all, we have a whole bunch of tips for our administrators. So there is this new functionality around monitoring your flows. So there's going to be a better way to see trends, errors, and alerts for all of your flows. You're also going to be able to add versioning. So you'll see which version of the flow is running. You'll be able to see previous versions and even restore back to a previous version if the current version isn't working. I think that's going to be super cool. And then we also are going to be able to store our history in Dataverse. So, back in the day when we were using classic workflows, you could build advanced finds off of the workflow data, right? And I think now if all this data is going to be in Dataverse, we might be able to do the same for flow. So I'm excited for that. I think that could be really cool for being able to see more trends and building these reports and seeing what's happening and handling when things fail and things like that. Heidi, are you excited for these features? What's interesting in here to you?
I'm so excited for these features. I think it's really nice that they're making this type of stuff more accessible to the administrators. I know there's nice telemetry for connector use if you build the connector, but I feel like it has been missing on the customer side. So this 2 thumbs up for me. How about you, Malcolm?
I love these too. The other one that I saw in there that I was going to put a slide in and then I, for whatever reason, didn't, but good segue to call it out is the ability to delete the flow instances in a version of a flow, if I'm recalling that correctly. So all the, hey, we've got an issue with this flow. We got to stop everything in this version of the flow from running. I think that's a huge add, and it kind of fits in here as well. This idea of being able to segment and carve out data about specific runs and specific groups of runs. I love it.
Awesome.
And also we will be able to connect to multiple Dataverse environments, right? So I think this was available in the legacy connector, but it was not in the modern Dataverse connector. So now it will be in the modern Dataverse connector, and we'll be able to combine data or perform operations across 2 environments. So how often do we need to move things from our test to our production? Or maybe you have multiple Dataverse environments for different business units that sometimes need to share data. Now we'll be able to do that through Power Automate.
That's very cool. Love it.
All right, next up is something that if you've been paying attention to our channel, you know that I like to play around with, and that's around natural language to flow. So they actually call this describe it to design it when you're actually at make.powerautomate.com as a selection. But this one is pretty simple. It's going to pass parameters better through natural language, which is great. So that's less manual work. Public preview is listed for this month. No general availability date, but I thought I'd give you an example today of how this might help. So I went in to describe it to design it, and I picked one of the templates, but I added something at the end. So every day send a message on Teams channel at 12 noon Eastern Standard, because I want to show you how this doesn't work today. So it gives me in the next step a suggested flow using recurrence for my trigger and a Teams bot action. And then right here, you can see in the final step, it didn't carry over that time. And then I would have to manually put it. So simply put, this is going to just add those parameters in my flow so I don't have to redo the work that I thought was already going to be there in natural language. What do you guys think about this?
I like this one. We touched on this when we did those previous videos it would be great if, I think we even tested this out to see if it could do it. And I remember that there were a couple of people, I think, from Microsoft's team who responded to your videos and said, yeah, great call outs. That thing is coming. So it's really cool to see that that has come to fruition, and it's coming in. It'll be really great to see it, because that just saves that extra step. It was one of those things where it was great to have the new design it feature in there, but then it fell a little short, not to undermine what was done to make it happen, because that was amazing. But then you got to the stage and you're like, oh, but I already put all that in and now I have to redo it. So to just take this one little step further, which is probably a monumental step in terms of getting it to do that behavior.
Right.
But it feels like a small step forward, but it's actually a really big one, which is awesome. It's going to be a huge value add.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is so great for new makers. It's just going to make it so easy to get started and kind of understand how things work together. So,
Speaking of great for new makers, let's talk about this other item, which is generate expressions from examples. I love this. When I'm writing a flow and I see scary expressions, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Even when I bring up the documentation, I just feel like I suck at writing expressions. My brain doesn't work the right way for expression writing. And maybe there are some other makers like that out there watching this video. So there's this fantastic, yay, Malcolm. There's this fantastic new update that's available now in public preview, and it's coming sometime this month, where you can write your expressions using examples of data. No formulas, no strings, no functions, no collections. So let me show you what this is going to look like. Right here, you're just going to select a button. Let's format data by example. And in the left column here, you give an example value for the date and what you want that output to look like. That's easy, right? We can all do that. Then you click Get Expression, and it gives you a suggested expression. You can test it. You can throw a test value in here and make sure it's giving you the right thing. Then you're going to click Apply. And that's the last screenshot I have for you. So all you do here is you copy this expression that is generated for you and you paste it. I love this. I love this so much. What do you guys think?
this is so cool. Yeah. I can't wait to try this in action, because I also struggle with expressions and was fighting with them yesterday. So this will be so fun.
Yay.
I know, I go and copy them. You go and find them in the documentation, and you try and type them and you mistype a character. And it's also, I struggle with it. Like, I'm a big Excel fan and formulas, and I do a decent job, but then I look at least I think I do, and then I look at the documentation, or I look at what other people do, and the complex formulas that come out, and I'm like, I don't even know what most of those things mean. So how am I even supposed to call them if I don't even understand what they all are? And I feel the same way here. There's just so much, which is amazing, but it's just so much to keep straight. So to have the ability to do this kind of stuff is great.
Awesome.
Cool. Robots. So this one's pretty quick and easy one. This feels like a thing that I think we've all been waiting for a long time, the ability for flows to be owned by service principals. So service principal essentially decoupling from a user account. And I know a lot of instances where we've had to create like a shared user account or an admin or a service account that is just technically a user account with full privileges or whatever privileges it needs. And that's, I mean, it works, but it's not ideal. You've got this extra account floating around. It's usually given high permissions. So if somehow it gets in the wrong hands, you've got a risk there. That these service principals essentially eliminate a big part of that, because they're just automated accounts to run them. So the ability to push the flow there and have multiple people engage in a flow that's owned by a service principal, and all those people win the lottery and disappear, it doesn't matter, because the service principal can own it, and away they go. So it's a huge add. It's a quick one, small in terms of the overarching thing, but I think it's a really important one to call out. And then this one I love. So I do a fair amount of work on the Microsoft 365 stuff too. So SharePoint Teams and things, and approvals are huge across the board, in even on the Dataverse and Dynamics side. But we see a lot of them in that, right? Like, hey, fill in a form, trigger an approval, get the right approvals, and the ability to start to sequence these. We've seen a lot where people build you have to build a flow and say, okay, first go through this, get the response from that person, then go through here, and then they're not quite, the requirement isn't such that you can just do approval by all. They need a very specific sequence to be followed. So this knocks that build time down substantially, because now we can just say, do an approval, go through this sequence of people, and you can see in the middle line there's 2 people, right? Which I love. So start with the manager. Once the manager's done it, go to the director and VP at the same time, and then ultimately go to whatever. So however the sequence is. So to me, this is a huge one. It's a really important one in those really complex scenarios, especially enterprise organizations that have just lots of layers of approval required, right? That to go through something, this is going to be a huge addition to that. What do you guys think?
I think they've simplified the way you build this today, right? So now you have multiple different steps within your flow to kind of craft this type of a thing. And this is just great. I think this is going to be a huge win for people out there. Approval seems to be like the gateway for people to come join Power Automate.
Yeah.
So more people using that means more people using the entire tech stack. So I'm excited for this one too.
Yeah, I think I'd like to play with this because I have some questions. Well, obviously, we always do. And I'd like to see, we want to make sure that all of the people on here could be dynamic content. And then the next question is, well, what if sometimes I only require one level of approval and sometimes I require two based on like the value. So it'll be interesting to see how this changes over the next little bit and the continued enhancements. Because I agree, like approvals is the gateway of everybody. That's a great way to get started with Power Automate.
Agreed.
Anyways,
and that's
thanks.
all I had.
Thanks everyone for joining us. I hope that you have enjoyed these quick tips for Power Automate from our release wave. Make sure you add to the comments below anything else that you've seen or any of these features that you're excited to try out. Have a great day.